So this is Kathleen Smith, Chief Outreach Officer here at ClearedJobs.Net. As many people know, ClearedJobs.Net is a veteran-owned firm. We are very honored and privileged to have many veterans and military spouses who work as part of our team. In preparation for Military Spouse Appreciation Day, I wanted to take a few moments and talk to two of our military spouses and delve a little bit deeper into what goes on in the life of a military spouse, because we frequently don't remember that those serving in our military are supported by family members who make a bigger sacrifice. So first, let's start with Sara McMurrough. Sara, tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. So, Sara McMurrough is married to the Army, has been married to the Army for about 13 years. And yes, it's a long time. I know there's a lot more time to go, but ironically, I met my husband at our officer basic course. So I was military myself for nearly 10 years before that. A little bit of a different scenario. I came from the National Guard. He was active duty. So kind of made that transition from living at home and being a service member living, with my parents to all of a sudden becoming the military spouse. It was a little different, but we've had a lot of adventures along the way, some more positive than negative, but definitely our challenges, and, feel like we've learned a lot and have a lot to share about our life together.
Wonderful. And Tracy Mitchell.
Yes. So I am a military spouse combined of 16 years, but 10 years currently. Stationed in Germany, and my husband is in the Army. I was also a veteran as well, so I served almost 10 years in the active duty Army as well. My husband and I met through mutual friends, and it's been great ever since.
I'm married to my Marine and have been married to my Marine for almost 23 years. We actually met on a blind date 26 years ago. And for the first 8 months of our dating, he didn't even tell me he was military. But he quickly changed, and it was great to hear his stories. So, Sara, Tracy, can you tell us something about being a military spouse that was a surprise to you? So we all have some expectations of what a military spouse life is going to be like. But Tracy, why don't you start first? What was something you expected and it actually turned out differently?
I think the biggest thing was that I thought I would understand, having been in the military, especially on the active duty side with an active duty husband. I thought I'd understand the late hours, the early mornings, the missed holidays, the missed timelines that we had as a family. And I really thought I'd understand it. And shockingly, I didn't. That was probably my biggest surprise and my biggest lesson that I had to learn as a spouse.
And how about you, Sara?
I think I can piggyback on that one a little bit. I think what I didn't realize with that same type of situation is what it's like to reintegrate and kind of take your family apart and then come back together all the time. Thinking that it would just be like, hey, welcome home, everything's normal. And it's not. It takes time, as a couple, but it always also takes a lot of time for kids to adjust to having their dad home again, and for dad to adjust to this routine, these schedules that you have put together as the one at home, right? The practices, the school, the homework, the when we eat dinner, what time do we get up, all of those things that as the one at home, you've figured those things out, right? You have a schedule, and then service member comes home and everything is disrupted, and then they have to try to live in your world again, really.
Mm-hmm. That must be really hard, especially when you have continual deployments going on like you've had to deal with over the past few years. So, Sara, what's a sad story you wanted to share with us about being a military spouse?
Oh, so I know a lot of military spouses, and we've had a really great life together. And, we've made a lot of sacrifices, but we have, we try to make good of every situation. But, like a lot of military spouses, I have delivered a child without my husband. We had our first one on the way and had planned my husband's 14-month deployment around, not the deployment itself, but his R&R, so his time to come home, had been very strategically planned around, well, a first-time baby usually comes on time or a little late, never early, of course, and had that planned out really well. Little man decided to make his debut early, of course. And so I had to call my friend to pick me up and take me home from the hospital, or take me to the hospital. I'm sorry, take the pictures on the way to the hospital. So had to be dropped off at the hospital, had to be on the phone with my husband delivering my first baby, and had to call a friend to take me home from the hospital after baby was born. And then I got home, and my sweet, sweet grandma neighbor came across the street, and she said, "Are you okay, Sarah?" I said, "Yeah, I'm going to be fine." She said, "Are you sure you don't want me to stay with you tonight?" Waterworks right then. Yes, this mama needs a grandma. And so sweet Vanessa, neighbor grandma, came and she stayed with me that night, and she let me do my own thing. She stayed in the guest room, but she was there to support. And if, little man woke up, she came and knocked on the door and said, "Are you okay?" So, yeah, I got this. But just having someone who knew what was going on there to support in that very emotional postpartum time was really important. And so the silver lining of all of this is that my husband made it home at 5 days. So he didn't have to deal with very pregnant Sara. He got to instead come home and spend 2 weeks with his baby. So,
Aw.
you have to look at the positive. You
Yeah.
can't change what happened.
Mhm.
And so, in the end, we're very grateful for that. And he made it home when little man was 7 months. So little man doesn't remember any of that. We do, but
Mama does.
and mama remembers all of that. So there's my sad story that a lot of military spouses go through. So definitely not the only one.
Tracy?
Well, so mine I think is it's a sad story, but it's a typical one. So the moment your husband or your spouse deploys, everything breaks. Everything. Things that always worked, they break. So in our case, my daughter, who just was starting to drive, had two flat tires. Got those fixed. The propane tank went out, and that's how we heated our house. Had to get that taken care of. I backed into a car accidentally. But then we had a blizzard, and then we had, if it wasn't that, then it was like all the leaves, and my daughter was sick at the time, so I couldn't get to the yard. You just everything happens. Oh, and then the carpenter ants. There were carpenter ants in my house. But so exactly. So everything, it just felt like it all happened at once, but it wasn't. It was probably something like once a month that would just like fall apart. And but the biggest thing is, it's funny, it's funny to me now, but at the time it stressed me out so badly, and it was so hard and so difficult. But it is a fact of military life, unfortunately. I mean, and a fact of a deploying spouse. Stuff breaks. But I came out stronger, and I can laugh at it now, and I can realize maybe that it wasn't quite so stressful as what it was, but at the time it sure was.
Yeah, it is those times when you're home alone and it's not only everything seems to break. The dog comes in with muddy paws. The sink breaks. Everything happens, and all you want is just somebody to help. You just want someone to help and someone to give you a hug and tell you it's okay. And you realize that you haven't had that help and you haven't had that hug in a long time, and you're not going to have it for another long time. I remember that. So let's talk about some funny stories. Tracy, what's your funny story?
So I think the funniest story was my husband was still deployed, but it's a great story. And I told him about it, which made his day on top of it, because the deployed spouse is stressed too. So I was getting the house ready, and which meant we owned it. So I was painting everything and cleaning and trying to get it all nice and perfect so we could sell it. And there was a strip on the ceiling that they'd left the painter's tape. So I pulled that, and then I got some paint, and I was standing on a chair, one of those bar stool height chairs, with a pint of paint, reaching up over my head, painting, and then all of a sudden I felt myself slip. The paint went against the wall, which was green, and I was using white paint.
Oh,
I had
no.
just cleaned the carpets, and the paint went all over the carpet.
Oh,
Now,
no.
but it was so funny. I mean, what do you do? I didn't know if
Nothing.
to laugh or cry.
You just
But then,
laugh.
but then
Both.
Yeah.
I think I cried for a second, and then I'm like, oh, I gotta get the paint out. Gotta get the paint out of the carpet. And so
Mhm.
then after I finished, I messaged my husband. I'm like, hey, you need to call me. So I called him and told him. He's like, you've got to be kidding me, because he could actually picture me doing this. So
Deployment Murphy.
Yep.
Again.
Absolutely. But I mean, the devastation of having to take 45 minutes and clean the carpet that was perfectly clean before, but now it's super clean.
That's good. Yep, we've all had those moments where you either choose to laugh or cry, and I think it's always better
Yeah.
just to laugh. Much
Oh,
better
yeah.
emotions that flow. Sarah, how about you?
Well, my neighbor actually just shared this story again with other neighbors the other day, because to her, this story is very funny. So last deployment, we had a hurricane, naturally, because as Tracy mentioned, everything happens when the service member deploys, right? Husband had been gone for a few weeks, and we have a hurricane. So we lost power, naturally. And fortunately, in the end, we all survived, and it was okay. Nothing major here. But anyway, we have no power. So when there's not any power, you read a lot and you use a flashlight for everything, right? So my neighbor knew that I would call if there were any issues, because her husband wasn't deployed at the time.
Mhm.
So 2:00 in the morning, Miss Lydia hears her phone ring. She answers the phone. She's thinking a tree fell on my house, or something like that. I said, Lydia, there's a spider. She said, what? I said, there's a really big spider. I don't know what to do. She's like, okay, can you smash it? And I'm not normally afraid of these things, right? She said, can you smash it? Like, what do you want me to do? And I said, hold on. And I walk over and I said, oh, it's not real. My kids, I can only assume, this spider was about this big, okay? It's a plastic black spider, very strategically placed against the floorboard on the side. So it looks like it's walking on my wall. Remember, flashlights make reflections. Said spider looks much larger in the middle of the night, and it's on my wall. I didn't know what to do. It was much too large to smash. And if you know anything about wolf spiders, and I'm sure Tracy does because she spent a lot of time in the South, you do not kill a wolf spider because they carry their babies on their back. You kill a wolf
Yeah.
spider, you release the babies, right? I was a little concerned. So there's my deployment story. She chooses to share this with anyone new that we're around. So apparently it's very funny. I survived the plastic spider of 2018.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
That's
I did.
awesome. That's
So
awesome.
there's my wonderful story of smartness.
Well, you've made me laugh and cry tears
Oh,
in
well,
20 minutes. That's
it's
great.
funny because when you're thinking about, like, what's a funny story? I don't know. I mean, to me, what's funny may not be funny to someone else. So I chose something that someone else chooses to share often that makes people laugh. So there you go.
Well, thank you for brightening the morning. So, our final little topic to talk about is we're all experiencing, shelter in place with COVID-19. Obviously, there are a few different things that you're having to deal with being a military spouse. Tracy, I loved a story you shared yesterday afternoon. You want to share that again?
Yeah, sure. So one of the biggest things is where we're currently located. We've been in lockdown's the wrong word, but we have been without essential services now for about 4 weeks. So a couple weeks ago, it came time to cut my husband's hair. Now, the last time he wanted me to cut his hair, he gave me about 10 seconds and said, "Forget it." And then he took the razor to it. And bless his heart, he does not have a pretty head. So I said, please, please, please don't do that. So I studied YouTube videos, and I had him all decked out on the our patio, and I got it. And actually, it didn't turn out too badly. Now, one side is a little lopsided, and then the following Monday, he didn't realize it, but he had to go on a Facebook video with the leadership team, and he started off with, "My wife cut my hair." So, and I have to cut it again this weekend. So
Good luck.
it's definitely different. Yeah. Thanks.
Oh, it's a good thing he's a handsome man. Saves him from his crazy haircut.
How about you, Sara?
You know, my COVID stories are, I think that we've learned a lot and we've enjoyed a lot of big positives in our lives. One, the distractions of children. Yes, there are challenges, but I'm really enjoying having them around. Now, the homeschooling piece, I'm not a teacher. Okay. And I also was not planning on being a homeschooling teacher with a full-time job at home, but it's, you know, it's a really great talking point when you're, you know, working with your customers and your friends, and, you know, we're all in it together, right? I mean, we're figuring it out. The dog and the barking in the background, I don't know if you hear her, but that's another part of it. So dogs, cats, I've really enjoyed the workouts with my neighbor, and we're doing them on Zoom with our gym so that we can, you know, still have that community that we're missing a lot. Really grateful for this wonderful street of people that we have always spent time with. So even though we're stuck at home, we at least have people close to us that, you know, we're able to be with. So, you know, it's again, that silver lining. So there are a lot of challenges with what we're dealing with, but trying to see the positives, and, you know, being grateful for what we do have has been a really great learning experience for us.
Yeah, I really like that silver lining seems to keep coming up as a theme among our entire team. I mean, within the first day or two, we were all sharing silver linings. And I think one of the silver linings for me is I get to be the drill sergeant now. You know, we used to go to a Pilates studio and a gym and do a lot of things to get our physical activity. And it's very easy to get out of that routine when you don't have someplace to go. So, online workouts and other kinds of workouts. So, I get to get us up early in the morning, like we are going to work out, we are going to do this. But I think also we're both realizing each other's workload, not only our full-time jobs, but also what we both do around the house and how we can help each other and how we can learn from each other. Is like, oh, okay, this is why this is important. So I think that that is a silver lining. But, you know, a great part of ClearedJobs.Net is having you, Sara, and you, Tracy, as part of our team. I know you take really great care of all of our customers, and in your spare time, you also reach out to military members and help them with their transition. So I really appreciate that. To the entire military spouse community, you have the appreciation of ClearedJobs.Net, and please reach out to us anytime you're looking for a job. All the best to everyone. Take care.